Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, the second edition of AD&D. When we left off, we were talking about making other magic items. We're dealing with crafting them now. We're diving into that. So, in order to craft a magic item, you're going to need the correct ingredients. And these can't be any ingredient. They should be of extraordinary quality. If it's a weapon you're enchanting, it should be the finest quality weapon. If it's a piece of wood, it should be some kind of rare and exotic wood that probably was grown in some unusual way. If it's a piece of cloth, it must be made to the exact specifications that you need. It could even be something of extraordinary quality, like a stone from the heart of a volcano, which seems almost impossible to gain. Regardless, your spellcaster should most likely be the one finding these things or forging these things, creating these materials. It is possible to purchase them, but whatever similar market value would be to the original item, it's going to be far more expensive. It should be at least 1,000 gold pieces, if not up to 10,000 gold pieces more than what the normal item would cost. So you can see how it can be very expensive if you're not getting it or making it yourself. Now you are required to prep the material, to basically get this material ready to enchant. This is a process that will take between 2 weeks to a month, and it will require about 500 gold pieces of materials to prep it at very least. This process is basically hardening, increasing the power that these items can hold with them. This step doesn't really create a lot of magic to the item itself, but it is indeed vital because it empowers everything to the level you want to be at. And now you're ready to actually enchant the item. Of course, you first are going to have to cast the enchant item spell. Once you've completed this, you cast any remaining spells, you use any remaining ingredients, use any remaining processes as was originally determined by the DM in order to create this magic item. Of course, it might also require special location in which you're doing this, and it might require more spells. Any spell that is associated with this magic item should match the abilities of the magic item that you're trying to make. So if you're doing some kind of magic item that has an effect on dexterity, well, there really isn't a spell that affects that, but you should have something similar. What you should do if you don't have one that matches exactly, like maybe a magic item that creates light, there's a light spell. If not, then you need a spell of similar power level. Basically, depending on how powerful the effect I have in said item, I should have a spell that is appropriate to that level. Of course, this also might require exotic ingredients to take the place of these spells. It is a possibility that your GM will determine that you're going to use that, rather than a spell at this point in time, in order to get this ability. Now, if you don't want your magic item to be more than effectively single use, you're going to have to combine this with the permanency spell to basically make it that the magic that you're putting within the magic item is permanent, is bound to there. You'll then add a command word to it to match with this power that you've created. If you don't use permanency, it will have a limited use of times you could use the magic item. Effectively, it will be equivalent to the number of spells you used in order to create it in the first place. If you only used one spell, it only has one use. The more spells you use, the more uses you have. Now, after if you've finished all the proper steps, you've gotten all the proper materials, you've done everything correctly, you theoretically have finished your magic item. But not quite. You haven't quite finished it because it requires a roll from your DM. The process is long and arduous. There's many locations where you can have mistakes happen or complications occur that can cause flaws to be established within the magic item. Effectively, because of the long process of creating it, you can mess up. So after all these opportunities to mess up, and everything is said and done, your DM rolls 60% chance of success. Now this is modified. You get plus 1% per level of wizard you are when creating this, and you subtract 1% for spell you use, unusual ingredient, or special process. So see, the very list your DM came up with originally subtracts from your percentage. Isn't that nice? Now this isn't to say that your DM can't alter this even further. If you took special precautions, your DM may give you a bonus. If you took shortcuts to speed things up, your DM could give you a penalty. Now, if on the percentage your DM rolls equal to or lower, successful. You've made your magic item. Hurrah! It's fine. Higher than that, congratulations. You've made a cursed item. And it will probably have opposite effect or some other similar curse that would match with the original plan of what the item would be. Whatever feeling the plan would be, it will have a negative effect that's probably going to be reverse of it. Now, you can't, because of the nature of the failure itself, aim to get that failure to get a cursed item. You can't purposely make a cursed item. Just because of the nature of how things work with it. You'd be aiming for failure. And aiming for failure doesn't work on the nature of these magic items. So it just means that you would fail. Nothing would come of it. That's it. You can't purposefully aim for that. If by chance you get it, well, if that's what you really wanted, great for you. If not, sorry. So that's it for today. I introduced you to more on making your own magic items and making other magic items. I talked about the process of getting the special materials needed, which might not be the only ingredients, but it's the base material. The cloak, if you're making a cloak. The bracers, if you're making a bracers. The armor, if you're making armor. The sword, if you're making a sword. And then I talked about tempering this material, getting it ready to enhance and take on these enchantments. Then I talked about creating it itself, which involves casting spells, maybe other ingredients, maybe other processes, locations, all this stuff combined, that when you get it together on the right steps, the formula which is determined by your DM, you create the magic item that you wanted. You forged it, ready to use it, or ready for your friend to use it if you're making for them. Now I talked about the actual chances of this being successful. It's not 100%. It's in fact relatively low in comparison to magic items. 60% base. This means that there's a very good chance of failure that might lead to a cursed item. Now there's processes you can take and things you can do to make this easier, make this percentage much less, but it's up to you to take it. In the next episode, I'm going to dive into priests making other magic items, and then I'll talk about both recharging magic items and destroying them before moving on to talking about relics and artifacts, hopefully. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows you support the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. Regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.